regular meeting of the Caribbean Community Heads of Government meeting being held right here in St. Lucia under the chairmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philip J. Pierre. It has been a very busy past 4 days. Of course, we were last with you when there was a opening ceremony on Sunday afternoon at this very same venue. Since then, we've also witnessed the heads going out on retreat, having that opportunity to discuss amongst themselves very pertinent and critical issues impacting the Caribbean community and Caribbean people. There was, of course, a number of side events that were happening throughout this time. On Monday, we saw young people coming together to discuss the challenges facing the youth in the Caribbean through a youth forum. And in the afternoon, a very riveting and engaging discussion forum on the matter of reparatory justice, a significant issue being championed by Caribbean leaders, the likes of David Comencion, Ambassador at large for Barbados, the likes of the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Hilary Beckles, former Ambassador Dr. June Suma, all of them presenting on this very important matter of reparations. Tuesday, the heads actually also met in plenary and discussed a number of issues, from climate change to the issues of reparations as well, the matters of health being faced across the region, the matter of the Caribbean single market and economy, the issues regarding the demographic situation in the region. All of these matters certainly being discussed at length. And finally today, the decisions being adopted and the closure of this meeting. We are awaiting the closing press conference of this meeting under the chairmanship of the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Prime Minister of St. Lucia. And I believe we are actually going to be joined in by the Deputy Secretary General of the CARICOM community. He is a native son of the soil from St. Lucia over in Georgetown, Guyana, but he certainly has been very active in this event, none other than Dr. Armstrong Alexis. And I think we have him right here to give some context. Welcome, and of course, thanks very much, Armstrong, for agreeing to do this at very short notice, of course.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Cody, for having me. And I really want to thank you for the exceptional coverage that you have given to this event. The CARICOM Conference of Heads of Government takes place every 6 months, and it's an ongoing thing for us. So some of us who are involved, we get used to doing this every 6 months, but for others, it comes around once every seven and a half years. So I'm really happy, as you mentioned, to be home, my own home country, hosting the 51st meeting, my own Prime Minister chairing that meeting. But as a Deputy Secretary General of CARICOM, I am also very grateful that one of our member states has done exceptionally well in the logistics and all the preparations for the respective delegations for this 51st meeting.
There was quite a lot of discussion, and of course also perhaps some moves in terms of the expansion of CARICOM as well. We witnessed the accession of associate membership of Cayenne. What we call Cayenne in St. Lucia, but officially French Guyana. And tell us about that, though. That event in itself.
Well, that was long in coming. I think that process, if I'm not mistaken, that process took over 8 years, and they were, as the president of French Guyana would have indicated in his speech, the accession speech, that there were quite a number of interactions. Former Secretary General Larocque would have visited French Guyana. Our current General Counsel, Lisa Shorman, and the team from the Foreign and Community Relations Directorate of CARICOM would have visited French Guyana. So it was long in coming. But one of the things for us as CARICOM is we recognize that the Caribbean community, despite the fact that it would have started off as a grouping of English-speaking countries in the Caribbean, islands and Guyana, Belize, ultimately Belize coming in. whilst we had this British colonial heritage that bound us together, we are more than just the language that we speak. We are a Caribbean community. There is a lot that we share in common, and we have to look out for each other. No better way of doing so but to expand the embrace to include those who are not original English speakers, and to bring them into the fold of the community. We also had Martinique sitting for the first time. Martinique joined the community somewhere in between conferences. So whilst the accession was signed some time ago, it was President Lechimi's first meeting, and he too was very grateful for the opportunity to participate in this 51st meeting.
Indeed, and it's an interesting point that you're making, that how the languages have shifted. I mean, if we were perhaps honest about the realities right now, the most populous language in CARICOM is actually Creole.
Absolutely, because now we have French Guiana, we have Martinique, we have Haiti, yes, we have St. Lucia, and we have Dominica. So we may one day have to consider, how we deal with the issue of language, because our rules currently say that our meetings are conducted in English. But we've also expanded to the Dutch Caribbean. Suriname has been with us since the 1990s. Curacao joined in 2024 as an associate member. I know Aruba is knocking on the door. So we really are looking to bring our Caribbean brothers and sisters under one umbrella, so that we can advocate and speak as a single Caribbean civilization. One of the things that I always say, Curly, when I meet with the international community, whether it is at the bilateral or the multilateral interventions, I always say to people, we are quite capable as a Caribbean to speak on behalf of ourselves. We are quite capable in the Caribbean to advocate for the issues that confront us. What we need in the Caribbean is to speak as one voice, and to get those who have access to places that we may not have access to, so that they can join us in our advocacy. Not to advocate for us, but to join us in the advocacy that we are ourselves quite capable of putting forward.
And of course, traditionally, one thought of CARICOM as more of a trading bloc, more of an economic space, but it's certainly become a lot more, as you're saying, in terms of the matter of advocacy. So many different aspects have been taken up, the cause of Cuba, the cause of Haiti, and the struggles over there. And of course, we're seeing now the likes of Trinidad and Tobago being on the UN Security Council, efforts as well in terms of Guyana wanting to host the Conference of Parties in 2030. So quite a lot of efforts in terms of raising the profile of the Caribbean as a place of discourse and negotiation.
No, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it, it started off as trade. It in fact started off as CARIFTA, right? The Caribbean Free Trade Area. And in 1973, CARICOM was birthed. But like you've said, we've now entered into areas that are much more than just trade. If we do get to host, if Guyana gets to host a COP in 2030, that's going to be a huge accomplishment by a CARICOM member state. If we succeed in electing a CARICOM National as the Secretary General of the United Nations, that is going to be a huge accomplishment for this region. We have, for the first time, been able to occupy the seat of Secretary General of the OAS in the person of Ambassador Ramdeen, which happened only a couple of years ago. So the Caribbean region is really taking its rightful place in the international community. The Jamaicans have a phrase, we little but we talawa. We are small island developing states, but we are not islands without the capacity, without the capability, without the intelligence to be able to stand amongst the best and the brightest in this region. When we listen to young Raheem Joseph in his feature speech at the opening of the community, we must continue to have hope in our community, in the people of our community. And that is why CARICOM is so important to us. When we see young people showing up at the age of 6 to run a 5K, we have to say that CARICOM is in fact touching the lives of people. And with the words, in the words of the current chair, Prime Minister Pierre, this 6 months is really supposed to be about making CARICOM more visible and allowing CARICOM to touch the lives of more citizens of our communities so that we can understand the work that goes behind such an organization.
Deputy Secretary General Armstrong Alexis, thank you so very much for taking us and getting us that context as we just await the start of this closing press conference at the 51st regular meeting of the CARICOM heads of government. And I know you've got to run,
yes,
so thanks again.
Thank you
very much.
The next time we do a part of that in Creole.
Oh, yes, it is. Merci appeal. And of course, we are just standing by for the start, the commencement of that heads of government press conference, the closing of that meeting. I'm told that we're still awaiting that start. Of course, we'll be seeing at that press conference the chair, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, but he'll also be flanked by the Bureau, which will include Dr. Terence Drew of St. Kitts and Nevis, and as well, I believe the representative from Suriname, the head of that delegation, will also be present for that meeting. It's going to be coming up very shortly. And of course, CARICOM, 16 million people across 15 full member states, another 8, I believe, associate members as well, many looking for full membership. There is an exciting period of expansion right now in respect of CARICOM, looking at embracing the efforts of the small island developing states right here in the Caribbean. Membership includes the likes, associate membership I should speak to, the likes of Curacao, the likes of Turks and Caicos Islands, the likes of Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands. These are all associate members. Of course, now Martinique and French Guiana in the mix as well. And we are still seeing some of the heads filtering in, and in fact, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia will be entering the ballroom just momentarily to begin that closing press conference of the 51st regular meeting of the Caribbean Community Heads of Government. The next meeting will in fact be the intersessional meeting in February, and that will be at Paramaribo, the capital of Suriname. And we, of course, are looking to see quite a lot of activity from the leaders of the Caribbean community over the next couple of months, with meetings going on in Guyana, looking at biodiversity meetings. And of course, there's going to be the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, SHOGM, that's happening in Antigua and Barbuda in the month of November. So please, of course, stay focused and stay in tune with what is happening in respect of the leadership here in the Caribbean and the work that they are doing for the people of the Caribbean.
Welcome to our closing press conference. I now invite our chairman to address you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I would like to read a statement first and take some questions after. We have Prime Ministers Mia Motley, Prime Minister Kamala Basaga, the Foreign Minister of Suriname representing the President of Suriname, who is out of the country, the former chairman, the immediate past chairman of CARICOM, Dr. Terence Drew, Ms. Dr. Carla Barnett, the Secretary General of CARICOM and the Communications Officer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past 4 days, Caribbean leaders have taken important decisions that will strengthen our community, improve the lives of our people, and position CARICOM to meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. Today, I'm pleased to share the key outcomes of our discussions. I'm pleased to serve as chair of the Caribbean community and to welcome my colleague heads of government and heads of delegation to this 51st regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, here in St. Lucia. I sincerely hope that colleagues and delegations enjoyed their time on our island and had an opportunity to experience St. Lucia beyond the meeting places. This week, every member state and associate member was represented by its head of government or designated head of delegation. I extend my appreciation and gratitude to all my colleagues who made the time to attend and to actively participate in our deliberations. I also wish to thank our delegates for their interest, their dedication, and commitment throughout the past 4 days. Their contributions enriched our discussions, strengthened the decisions we have taken together. On the margins of the meeting, several important activities were held. The 19th CARICOM Road Run Walk. More than 250 professional athletes, amateurs, and recreational runners representing 15 countries and territories participated in this year's events. The CARICOM Road Run Walk continues to promote friendship among Caribbean people while highlighting the importance of healthy lifestyles, physical activity, and good nutrition. The CARICOM Youth Forum, hosted by the government of St. Lucia and the CARICOM Secretariat. The forum provided an important platform for the youth to engage directly in regional dialogue. Under the theme, Youth Solutions for the Future, participants, both in person and online, explored climate change, economic uncertainty, crime and violence, employment and mobility, while demonstrating their creativity, resilience, and leadership that define our Caribbean youth. Ladies and gentlemen, our discussions over the past 4 days were guided by one central objective: ensuring that CARICOM delivers results that people can see and feel in their everyday lives. During our deliberations, heads of government focus on the issues that matter most to the people of the region. We agreed to strengthen regional cooperation to protect consumers, improve affordability, and explore additional measures that can provide relief to vulnerable households. We also agreed to strengthen consumer protection and work together to address rising prices across the community. We made further progress towards the free movement of CARICOM nationals, while additional member states advancing towards full participation. We also accelerated work towards establishing an affordable intra-regional ferry service that will improve travel, facilitate trade, strengthen food security, and make our community more connected. On food security and economic resilience, we reaffirmed our commitment to the Vision 25 by 2025 plus 5 initiative to reduce the region's food import bill and strengthen agricultural production. Recognizing that technology will shape our future, we also agreed to establish a regional Blue Ribbon Commission on Artificial Intelligence to guide the development of policies that will enable the Caribbean to benefit from AI while responsibly managing its risks. We reaffirmed our commitment to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius and to advancing and to advocating for the special circumstances of small island developing states. We also agreed to advance a regional insurance and reinsurance strategy to better protect our people, infrastructure, and economies against hurricanes and other natural disasters. On health, we endorsed stronger regional cooperation, including enhanced preparedness for emerging public health threats and expanded access to specialized healthcare services across member states. We approved the CARICOM 10-point plan for reparations, a manifesto for the coming enlightenment, and agreed on several initiatives to advance the region's reparations agenda, including strengthened collaboration with the African Union, a strong CARICOM presence at the Common Heads of Government meeting later this year, the third regional conference on reparations in Barbados, and the unveiling of the Newton Enslaved Burial Ground Memorial in Barbados. We also welcome French Guiana as CARICOM's newest associate member, following the recent ascension of Martinique. This marks another important step in expanding and strengthening the Caribbean community. Heads of government reaffirmed our continued support for Haiti as it works towards restoring peace, security, and democratic governance. We also agreed to continue coordinating humanitarian assistance to both Haiti and Cuba. Coordinating a meeting of this nature is no easy task. I therefore wish to express my sincere appreciation to the National Planning Committee and the CARICOM staff and the staff of the Ministry of External Affairs in St. Lucia and the Office of the Prime Minister. The decisions we have taken this week reaffirm that CARICOM remains united in purpose and determined in action. Together, we will continue building a Caribbean that is more resilient, more prosperous, more connected, and better prepared for future generations. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We'll now open the floor for questions. Our protocols for this engagement are: we will have one question from each person so that we can have as many of your colleagues asking questions as we can accommodate in the half hour that the Chair has available for this engagement. We ask that you press the button on to open the microphone. We'll have one question from each side of the room and then from colleagues online. As usual, we start with a question from the host country. I recognize the representative from MBC for her question.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Chelsea Austin, MBC Television. I have a multitude of questions, but I'll try to keep it to the one. We're going to stick on program here. What are some of the measures to be implemented to help deal with the external shocks on the cost of fuel, by extension the cost of living, as the region navigates through this tumultuous global time?
Well, we discuss the cost of living. As you know, the cost of living is something that impacts on all of us. Every island is suffering from an increase in the cost of living. What we decided to do, we decided to share experiences among ourselves. Several islands have taken certain measures to reduce the cost of living in their various areas, in their various islands. But there is one factor we have no control over, which is the price of fuel. We have the price of oil, basically. We have no control over the price of oil. But what we've done is that we've shared experiences. Some islands, like St. Lucia, we've removed the VAT on certain items. I think in the case of Barbados, certain measures have been taken. Every island, every government has taken certain steps to reduce the cost of living. But the main fact, which we have to consider, is we have absolutely no control over the price of oil. This is the variable that we have no control over. As Prime Minister Motley is in the Caribbean Single Market Economy, the head Prime Minister, I don't know whether she wants to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You're absolutely correct. One of the major decisions taken by heads of government has been to share the experiences. So, for example, I'm looking at the experience of Guyana here on the slide. I'm looking at the experience of Barbados here on the slide, so that we are sharing with each other the measures that we've taken. Invariably, those measures relate to reduction of taxes on the fuel imports, making adjustments to the cost of freight. In our case in Barbados, we've also determined that for the charging of taxes, we would use FOB rather than to use the costs including insurance and freight, which would simply inflate the cost of goods. There are some subsidies. Trinidad has traditionally kept its fuel costs down. The rest of us who have to import heavily don't have that luxury. And then we have made adjustments to taxes. In our case in Barbados, we've introduced a cost of living allowance for all pensioners, $100 a month, plus, which would be 50 US, plus, of course, for those who are on welfare. And on top of that, we've increased the rates of welfare by 30% again to be able to offset so that those at the bottom are not in a more vulnerable position. We then also have looked at the fact that we believe that we need to make available the prices to consumers. And in some instances, some countries have apps that people can use so they can go and search the prices at different stores. And we would like to be able to ensure that rather than historic pricing, that we can get real-time access to those pricing for those who have the apps. In addition to that, the major initiative that we want to be able to do is to reduce the costs of cargo for intra-island trade. And it is against this backdrop that the long-awaited ferry is something that we're working on assiduously. But Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa has also agreed that pending the private sector arrangements, which may take as long as a year because they have to source vessels, while we do the regulatory work, hopefully between now and the next 3 months, that Trinidad and Tobago has had a history of using ferries between Trinidad and Tobago. I think you said you have 5 ferries. And we are now about to enter discussions, Prime Minister Friday from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa, and myself as lead on CSME, to see how best we can utilize one of the Trinidad vessels as a proof of concept while the private sector procures. And I've undertaken the responsibility of working with colleagues to be able to get the treaty arrangements for mutual recognition of licenses, insurance, so that vehicles, cargo vehicles, can literally go on and come off where possible. This is a work in progress, and it also involves the fact that some ports in the Southern Caribbean, and this is the proof of concept will first be in the Southern and Eastern Caribbean, but it requires us to also assess what other infrastructural arrangements might be needed at the port or whether ramps can be used. So I give you the assurance that we are singularly focused on being able to reduce the cost of intra-island cargo, which in addition to the other measures that we have taken to increase disposable income of our citizens, but also to reduce the cost of freight, the cost of gas, and the cost of electricity, all of which when combined can be completely inflationary, is what we're doing together. And we none of us is omniscient, none of us has all the answers, none of us are omnipotent as well. So we will work together, and as Prime Minister Pierre said, the ball reality is this is inflation that is imported. And as you know, last night, the fighting has started again. So that is what creates also the uncertainty. But we are committed to shielding our population as far as possible.
Thank you, Prime Minister and Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister Pierre. This one? Thank you. I fully support the way forward with respect to your questions about external shocks that is impacting on our countries. And I think every one of us in the community, this whole issue of what Mayor raised about cost of living. So in addition to the initiatives that Prime Minister Motley has outlined, Trinidad and Tobago is very interested, of course, in earning forex, but at the same time giving some kind of affordable health care. So if I may, Prime Minister, this is also with respect to bringing down the cost of living in our country. So we propose, first of all, we have had help from the government of India to set up a national prosthetic center. This is for the fitting of artificial limbs. I have set up that center, and I'm not saying our services there, of course, at an affordable price will be available to our CARICOM brothers and sisters. Because when we look at the prices otherwise, you go to the US, they range from 3,000 US to, what was it you told me, 120,000 US, depending on the mobility of what you want that artificial limb to do. So this is in one area I think we can help bring down costs, where we could use our center. Of course, we will earn some Forex, but it will be at an affordable price for brothers and sisters in the CARICOM. The second one is also health related. We do have many medical graduates at the general practice level, house officer level, and we have shared with CARICOM members. We are willing to work with them to provide fully trained doctors, majority trained, UWI trained doctors to the other countries. And the third one is that we have a very highly specialized children's hospital. When we had built it and we left government, no politics here, but we had left it for 10 years, nothing happened. And when I came back in, I'm so proud now that we've been able to get that hospital really for the first time fully functional. So we're offering again at affordable prices, utilization of that Hoover Children's Hospital. We're talking about cost of living, and in these three respects in the medical field, if we partner together, perhaps a pair, again, we can bring down the cost of living and, of course, the external shocks that you mentioned. So thank you very much.
There's just one other point I should have added, that COTED, which, as you know, is a subcommittee of an organ of the community, has also been looking at making adjustments to the common external tariff on some of the basic food items in the region. And some countries have already asked for different arrangements to be put in place so that they can remove the common external tariff, which will reduce the cost of goods. Right now in the community, we agree to a common external tariff to protect regional production. But over the decades, there have been some items that remain there while there is no regional production, in fact, in place. So we're trying to clean up all of that, because ultimately, if we sweep every corner clean, we will be able to have cumulative reductions in the cost of living. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And the issue of the cost of living, seems like the Caribbean is just on this wave, up and down, up and down. There's a war, we're up, we're down, up, down, a hurricane, we're up, down. And we suffer these shocks mainly because a lot of what we consume, we import. But we have come to realize, well, at least from St. Kitts and Nevis' perspective, that the fundamental issue is energy. And we've also recognized that we don't have an energy issue. We have an energy harnessing issue. We have wind, we have solar, we have geothermal, and we have wave. And we have started to invest heavily in these. And there's nothing that can really stabilize our economy or transform our economy or deal with this constant up and down, like stabilizing our energy sources and our energy situation. And so I think, speaking at the OECS meeting with respect to the private sector, I mentioned that because they showed a chart of about $70-something billion as a result of buying products, petroleum products. And I asked myself the question, why is it we can't cut into that $70-something billion and we are concentrating on the $6-point-something billion? Cutting into that with renewable energy can really help from our perspective to transform the Caribbean, to transform the region, and help us to get on a sustainable path of really managing the cost of living of all of our people here in the region. So that is one of our proposals that we are putting forward. And finally, to say we have a 50 megawatt solar plant that we have on tender, which will start within the next 9 months. We have geothermal, which will give us initially about 30 to 45 megawatts of energy with a potential of 1 gigawatt of energy, which we have signed with Icelandic drillers already, which we intend to be an extremely large production of solar energy, which we intend to share through undersea cable with other countries around, like Antigua and Barbuda, to help to carry down their significant cost of energy, hence their cost of living. So we're looking at short-term interventions, medium-term, and I think the Caribbean, it's time we get off of this up and down situation and stabilize us for the longer period. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Prime Ministers. Our next question will be from this side of the room. I recognize the UK Guardian, and in the meantime, I ask colleagues online, if you would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand function so we can recognize you next. UK Guardian.
Thank you. Natricia Duncan, Caribbean correspondent for The Guardian. This question is directed to Prime Minister Motley as chair of the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Reparations. So there has been significant pushback from UK parliamentarians on the issue of reparations, with threats from parties to impose visa bans on countries asking for reparations. And recently, one prominent UK politician saying that it is in fact the Caribbean who should be paying the empire for its effort and contributions. How is this resistance affecting the movement, and what is the strategy to address it, especially going into the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm not sure that you want me to reply to things that really are asinine. And certainly the notion that we should pay the United Kingdom for oppressing us, for enslaving us, and for treating us as chattel. And that is the difference. Slavery existed before, but this was the first time that human beings were defined as chattel. And I've been very clear all along that the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, which predated the Code Noir, which the French have just repealed less than 2 months ago, all distinguished themselves, and all of the slave laws that followed the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, by the treatment of human beings as chattel. We are not asking for charity. We're asking to be able to ensure that justice can be done. In 1834, the British Parliament did not need to be persuaded of that fact with respect to the loss of property because we were chattel, and the compensation of the slave owners of £20 million. I would like to advise that those who have not yet read sufficient to understand the history do so before making comments that really do not reflect well on them. With respect to the movement, this is a global movement now. We just came from Accra in Ghana, and as you know, the United Nations passed the resolution that Ghana brought in March of this year. We have seen Pope Leo make comments in this year of our Lord. We have seen President Macron recognize that the conversation for reparations, just as His Majesty King Charles, when he was Prince Charles at the opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, stated clearly that reparations was a conversation whose time had come. I have no doubt that there are British parliamentarians who want to distract people from the domestic politics of the United Kingdom at this point in time. But the Caribbean should not be used as a prop in those circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Online we have Guardian Media from Trinidad and Tobago. Please go ahead with your question. Please unmute your microphone. Ramdeo.
Hello, hello.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
We're hearing
Good
you.
afternoon. Can you hear me?
We are hearing you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. This is for Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa. Just wanted to find out from you, ma'am. I know that there would have been some critical matters discussed at the meeting, of course, right? As mentioned, as articulated by Prime Minister Pierre. I just wanted to get your view on the function of CARICOM, ma'am. You know, you've had some pretty critical words of CARICOM before. Just wanted to find out whether or not your views have changed, and you know, what's your position on CARICOM going forward. I know, you know, there was talks that it was once described as an unreliable partner. Just want to get your views on whether or not your position has changed.
My position from the start remains to now. And that position has been, whilst I would have leveled some concerns about the operations of the CARICOM, I have always said Trinidad and Tobago remains committed to the CARICOM. We have unwavering support to the CARICOM for us to work together to better the region and, of course, all our citizens. So I have not changed in that position. However, some matters discussed in the recent days, I think we've been able, through the chairmanship of Prime Minister Pierre, and of course with the cooperation of the other heads, that we've been able to iron out some of the concerns I had. So my position has not changed. I remain committed to the CARICOM. We will have issues from day to day, from time to time. In a family, you have issues of concern, and my position is that we must raise them. We must not put our heads down in the sand like ostriches. We raise them when they are and try to find resolutions. So we've been able in this 51st CARICOM heads meeting to iron out some of those differences, and I think we are better as we go forward. So thank you, Jesse, for your question.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The Miami Herald.
Thank you. I'm hoping the heads who are here can talk about their efforts with Venezuela in terms of, you know, what assistance we've been able to provide. But my question actually has to do with Cuba. CARICOM has always been steadfast in support of Cuba and calling for an end to the U.S. embargo. Yesterday, for the second time in months, we've seen this body split on an issue as it relates to Cuba. Does this mean that Cuba is losing support within CARICOM?
We are closest to Venezuela, 6 or 7 miles. So whatever happens in Venezuela impacts what happens in Trinidad and Tobago. Just last night, we had a lengthy discussion at 2 a.m. this morning, Mia. Yes. Some of us as heads discussing this very matter of what's happening with Venezuela, given the devastation that they faced. First of all, immediately those things happened, many of us in the region were holding meetings. Whilst it was happening, we had heads meetings and taking place and sending personnel. So instantly we addressed the really human woes based on the earthquakes, not even just one. Thereafter, we worked in the region for sending supplies, relief personnel to Venezuela. Indeed, tonight, when I go home, we'll be sending off an entire ferry, the Guardian's Passage, going off to Venezuela, loaded with supplies for the people of Venezuela. I know Guyana has done the same, Barbados has done the same, and many of the nations have been really stepping up to give assistance to our colleagues and the people of Venezuela. So I will deal with Venezuela unless you have more, ma'am, and me will deal with Cuba.
Chairman may as well. But I will say on Venezuela that I think Guyana is coordinating a ferry, and there are 88 containers going from the majority of members of CARICOM on that boat that Guyana has coordinated. Barbados, through the RSS, would have sent in people within 48, 72 hours, I believe, to be able to help with the rescue efforts. And we have also sent in, Barbados has one of the few certified field hospitals in the region and the Americas. We deployed it to Jamaica for 3 months after Hurricane Melissa. we're now deploying it to Venezuela because clearly, with the level of injuries and the pressure on the medical system, this is going to be one of the major areas which the Venezuelan people need. And we have been in contact with the president of Venezuela and will continue to be so because, as we said, there but for the grace of God goes any of us, and we believe that we have a responsibility morally to help the people of Venezuela. It has been a horrific experience for them. As it relates to Cuba, Mr. Chairman, back to you, or you want me to address it? Heads discussed this matter. This is not an easy issue. And I think that we are agreed that the discussions and the debate must take place, but without prejudice to any discussions and debate for a peaceful resolution of what is transpiring with Cuba, that there is a humanitarian crisis. And you cannot continue to ignore that reality. The United States of America, I believe, has said itself that it will contribute to the relief of the humanitarian crisis. The Caribbean has been resolute in saying that we want to do it. In Barbados' own case, we had to spend about 5 months, and the money was returned twice, and this is the third time, for us to buy baby milk for the children of Cuba, which was specifically what was one of the clear priorities, so that the region will continue to walk. We recognize that this is always going to be a complicated and complex issue, as was reflected in the United Nations debate on Tuesday. But we want to remain focused on the humanitarian efforts, and we want to remain focused on the dialogue that should continue to take place for the resolution of this matter. And CARICOM will always be ready and has told both the Americans and the Cubans that we are more than ready to be there to help facilitate this dialogue, because when you live in a neighborhood, what happens in the neighborhood affects everyone. And the neighborhood stretches from Florida to Guyana and Suriname in the south. Thank you.
On the matter, for full disclosure, I lived in Cuba for 7 years and I studied medicine there. So I still have a lot of friends there and a lot of people who are professionals. And so I somewhat get from them the humanitarian issues that are taking place there. And of course, for all of us here in the CARICOM and in the region, we are very touched by what has happened. We, under my chairmanship, we discussed putting a fund together for humanitarian relief. And I'm happy to report, Prime Minister, I just got the update that you mentioned the money was returned 3 times, that I can say it has now been accepted at the 4th time. And so we are now expecting to deliver the first batch of baby milk. Different countries have delivered for different things, and we hope that that gets to the children of Cuba as soon and as quickly as possible.
It was the money that was sent back. Because of the sanctions and the different areas, it is almost impossible to be able to deliver it. And we've had to go through circuitous routes with respect to dealing with countries who are willing to ensure that the humanitarian aid is delivered.
So the money went to them to buy baby milk?
Yes, not in Cuba, because there's no baby milk in Cuba. It's being to buy the milk, then to send the milk to Cuba. But nobody's going to release the milk without payment. And because we are shipping it to Cuba, therefore the process goes through enhanced due diligence. Okay? But humanitarian relief comes above everything else, because none of us can give back life to anybody.
Thank you, Prime Ministers. CMC?
Thank you very much. At the head table, we would all agree that the situation in Cuba is as a result of a United States policy vis-a-vis regime change. But I said that in order to preface my question. My question is about the United States policy with regards to refugees or people from what they term third country migrants or refugees. The United States is going about it by going with individual countries in the Caribbean. And I know for sure that there are some Caribbean countries that would prefer that the region negotiate that issue as a collective. Was that discussed? And if so, what position has been adopted?
Yes, we did discuss that issue. As you know, it's an issue that is of concern to all of us. We discussed it and we took a position that we would share some more information among ourselves about what really is each island doing. Right now, we are not clear. So we decided to share some information among ourselves so possibly come out with a more definitive position in the future. But right now, it's a fact the United States has asked most islands to accept third country nationals.
Thank you, Chair. Our next question from a journalist online recognizing Dennis Chabrol. Please go ahead with your question. Mr. Chabrol?
Are you hearing me?
We're hearing you now. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My question has to do with the Citizenship by Investment Program. I would like to know whether CARICOM discussed this in the face of the EU threats, and overall, what is estimated total annual revenue from CBI for those participating countries?
CARICOM did not discuss the CIP program. I said CARICOM did not discuss the CIP program.
Could I ask a follow-up quickly, sir?
Yeah, sure.
On what basis did CARICOM decide, given the fact that we now know for sure that the European Union, for example, has decided that look at Antigua and Barbuda. They've given Antigua and Barbuda a position up until June 2028 to either do away with the CBI or they will impose visa restrictions. The United States has already put visa restrictions on Caribbean countries. Is it that we take that the CBI is no longer a relevant issue for Caribbean countries?
Well, the CIP program only exists in a few islands of CARICOM. St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, Antigua, and St. Kitts. So we see it more as an issue that we discuss among ourselves, and at the larger CARICOM level, it was not discussed. Yes. It was not discussed because we are the only, but I'll tell you what, we've been trying our best to follow best practice. We've been trying our best to ensure that all the requirements that we are asked for, we've met them. The latest requirement that we have a unified regulatory body, we've done that through the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. All the due diligence procedures that we are asked to do, we take these steps. But each country has a right to impose its own domestic policy, and we are in no position to tell anybody what to do as far as their domestic policy is concerned. So regardless of what we do, if Europe decides that they don't want us to have a CIP program, that's what is going to happen. Each country has its own domestic policies, and if for their own reasons that is decided by Europe, by countries in Europe, that they do not want a CIP program, there's literally nothing we can do under these circumstances. But we're going to follow all what they've asked us to do, and we've gone and in terms of history, we have been there before. We've done what we do. We took all the steps as far as our bananas were concerned, and we still lost treatment of our bananas as far as our sugarcane is concerned. So we've gone there before. We've been there before, and we've always survived, and I'm sure we'll continue to survive.
Thank you, Chair. We are just about out of time, sir. We'll take our final question from the room, from Al Jazeera to my left.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Josh Rushing. I'm the senior correspondent for a show called Fault Lines on Al Jazeera English. We've been investigating the disappearances of two St. Lucians, Ricky Joseph and Nafi Williams. All evidence points toward their deaths being caused by a U.S. boat strike on February 13, 2026. Experts have told us that these extrajudicial killings amount to murder. The families who we spent time with say they have little hope of justice. So my question for you, Prime Minister Pierre, and then I have a question broadly for everyone, but for you is, for these families, what should justice look like in this situation? And then broadly, for the other leaders present, does the United States have immunity to kill citizens in your territories for alleged crimes?
I've answered that question before. I've answered it before, and my friend Dale Elliott has asked me that question before. I'll give you the same response that I gave him. We are very concerned about the loss of life for anybody, particularly these people who lost their lives at sea. We've requested information from the United States, and we've not got any information as to what happened. As I speak, we still consider it a missing persons case, and our own law enforcement are trying their best to see if they can decipher what happened. But as far as we are concerned, the United States have given us no information on that issue.
Are you on the record to say the United States is obstructing your investigation? It's been 5 months since it happened.
I'm not on the record as saying that.
What possible information could they provide to you?
I'm on the record as saying that they've given us no information.
What possible information could you get from the United States so you could proceed with your investigation? And I return to the families who, they've told us you haven't contacted them. What should justice look like for these families?
Excuse me. Let me assure you, these families are our people, you know.
Yes, sir.
They are my people. So I'm very concerned about them. I'm sure more than you. They are my people, right? I'm very concerned about them. But all I can tell you, I can only tell you what I know. And what I know is we have not got any information from the United States. That's all I know. But I'm very concerned about them. I'm sure I'm more concerned about them than you.
Well, I would just challenge that. I've spent the week with them. I can name their children.
Yeah, but I'm sure.
Sir, can you?
Because, I mean, after this week, you're going to be leaving. I'm here with them. So I know that pain. I know what they're suffering from, but I can only tell you the truth.
Why haven't you reached out and talked to those families then?
Oh, I've done more than that. You see, you were still for a lot longer time.
For the other leader.
Can I intervene? Because earlier, with respect, you did ask me the same question about nationals or citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. All our investigations, our local law enforcement, everything, nothing has given us any evidence of the alleged murders, as you're calling them, and we don't, and I'll come back to that in a moment, of the alleged killings of these persons being national citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Several months, I asked you, what you're talking is a new one. No, you told me several months ago. We have been able to find nothing within our own investigative due diligence that they are TNT. But the second issue is you said that you are labeling these, and there are those in the world who are Prime Minister Premier, I say I agree with you. Any life lost is one too many. But, you know, it is your view or the view of those who've asked your bosses sent you, whoever, that they are murders. No, we were very careful. We got legal advice, and we are not labeling them, whether it's St. Lucia, whether it's Titi, whoever it is in these boats that are, the gunfire is going on, whatever is going. Our legal advice has not been that they are murders. And I can only act within the rule of law based on the legal advice that we have received. So I thank you, sir, for your question.
I can say, from St. Kitts and Nevis' perspective, we believe, like our colleagues, in the rule of law. We believe everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Those are the principles on which our justice system, we consider them to be fundamental rights of our people. So in a broad sense, that is where we stand as a country.
You asked for every one of us to speak, and we will speak because you have come clearly with a view to prosecute. And that may be legitimate for you to do so as a journalist. But let us also be clear that this is going to be a very acrimonious legal and geopolitical issue. There will be disputes as to whether this is an act of war or this is within the normal confines of criminal law. And I've heard both sides of the story. Suffice it to say that we would rather not have this as a first option with respect to the containment of persons. War, as we understand it, is in a traditional conflict, theater of conflict. By the same token, jurisprudence has evolved, and that is part and parcel of what makes this issue so complex. Morally, I would prefer not to see it. If there is engagement between the parties, militarily, they're allowed to be able to take proportionate action. So let us be very clear that Barbados always believes that there are better ways to deal with things rather than through the loss of life, whether it is the war in Gaza, whether it is internal conflict elsewhere. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, you asked all of the leaders on the table to speak for Suriname. I don't know the very specifics of this case, but let us say our approach is and will always be in the respect for the rule of law. We are living within a world where we do need to oblige also the international law, the commitments, and human rights. So I think I have heard it already, and I want to emphasize that and to underline the importance of the rule of law and the importance of human rights within the sphere of the international law that we all strive for. I hope it's clear. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Chair, we have come to the end of our press conference. We thank you very much for your leadership and participation, and to all heads of government present and the Secretary General, thank you very much. Thank you, members of the media.